Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think podcast. We are
Back.
and here with another episode.
Just threw him off. We're
Yeah.
excited, right?
We are excited, yes. And you know what? You are excited when you listen to this podcast, and you want to know why. It's not just because we're entertaining. It's not just because we're interesting. It's not just because you learn something in every episode, although those things are true. Mm-hmm. But when we are exciting, we are reflecting that into you, and then you are just mirroring it back. And you're like, oh, you're excited? I'm excited. Why do I always feel excited? It's because the world is just a mirror of you. That's our episode. Yeah, Twilight Zone, exactly. This is really interesting. We were recording an episode before this one, so if you didn't listen to the previous episode, which we were talking about performing in therapy, go back and listen to that. Actually, no, watch the YouTube, because this was the behind the scenes on our YouTube channel. So go check out our YouTube channel on Shrink Think. And at the very end of the episode, after we recorded, we were staying on, and I just had this idea, like based on something that you had said, Nathan, in that episode, that a lot of my clients talk about it in my personal life. I talk with my buddies about all this kind of stuff. It's really fascinating, really interesting, and it's absolutely true. And it's the idea that who you are and where you are gets reflected in the world around you. And that world around you is attracted to and attracts certain things because of that. And so we want to unpack that. It's really, it sounds really, I don't know, philosophical, or how would you, existential, a little bit like woo-woo, right? Like when we were talking about this, I said something about like manifestation or whatever. And it's like people who say stuff like that, I'm like, click, I'm turning you off. Like, I don't believe that. You can't just manifest, $1 million or manifest
Right.
a Porsche or something, right? I tried it. It doesn't work. I've sat in the parking lot overnight, and I didn't wake up in a Lamborghini. It was a cold, dark night. Probably should have done that in the summer.
Wake up in a
and not in the winter. But no, it's more about who you are and what you do. It's really empowering. I want to give you the concept and the tools, if you will, to empower yourself to change, because when you change, the world around you changes. Or rather, it doesn't actually, because the world doesn't change. The world is the way it is. The reality is always going to be the same. But the difference is that when you change, your world actually changes.
Yeah, if you think about like on a very practical, objective level, people struggling with addiction, as they get out of it, they actually do end up getting out of the world that they're in. They have to remove all the supporting factors. But what ends up happening is they actually don't view those things anymore as something that they want to do. So did the world change? No, they're just not doing those things. So they're also not getting the feedback, right? They're not having the same experiences trigger-wise as our listeners know all about that word triggering. Where you're kind of activated into something. But what you're talking about, Aaron, is on that level, but it's also on a deeper level, because there's this idea that because you don't know what you don't know, you're also interpreting everything around you a certain way, and then you're interacting with it that way. And when you actually get really into this, it almost feels like you're premeditating it. Anyway.
Yes, that's correct. So let's actually let's bookmark that, and let's go back to what you said originally with the addiction situation, because I think that's so simple and so practical, but also so clear, and it will kind of foreshadow a little bit of what's to come that you're talking about. So the person that is an addict is, obviously they're using drugs or alcohol. They are around people that are doing it, because when you become an addict, you don't necessarily want people around you who are going to tell you otherwise. You want to reduce that friction and pursue people who are going to support this habit or this lifestyle that you're interested in. So you find other users, other addicts, who will use with you or support or condone those behaviors. And so thus you enter into that world, and the world around you now is created because you are addicted to these drugs or whatever. So the cool thing is that you're saying is when you make a decision, you decide, I'm going to get out of this. I no longer want to use, I've hit rock bottom, or my life has become unmanageable, or whatever, and you decide to change, all of a sudden now you are changing. And because you've made a different decision to go in a different direction, you've decided to look at these drugs and these people, this environment, as something that no longer suits you. Whereas before you were saying, I need this. This is my happiness, or this is my peace, or this is how I function. Now you're saying, I don't need this. This is harmful. These things are bad for me. They're damaging to my life. All that's changed is your belief about those things, right? When that happens, you have changed, and now all of a sudden you're looking at those things differently. And also, as a result of that, because you're seeing those things that way, you no longer pursue those people, hang out in those environments, or surround yourself with that crowd of people, because they no longer are serving this new purpose in your life to be sober and in recovery. And so now the world around you has shifted and changed. Although in reality, it didn't actually. You just moved to a different part of the world.
Yeah, so this is also why it is so hard to make the change, because when you are really in a different world. And there is an aspect, what's happened really, if you narrow this down, is they always talk about the rock bottom. Aaron even just mentioned it. It's that the time at which the experience of that specific thing is so abhorrent that you're like, I can't even put myself into a situation to experience that thing ever again.
The pain is too great.
And the problem then, that the first thing that happens when you try to move out of it, is you start to feel very uncomfortable, because there's a bunch of other things that were a part of that world that you were getting feedback about that actually drew you into it in the first place. It's stuff that you like, maybe even people that you like, situations where it's not that you might disagree with what they do and that kind of thing, but you're like, I really like them.
And it might be unhealthy, but you liked it.
Right. Now you know it's unhealthy, and you kind of can't not see it, but you feel like in yourself that draw, that, as Aaron was talking about in the beginning, that attraction, to where it's like, it's not about romance, it's about the attraction of that environment. It's just that the more you look at it, the more it's like, it's just not cool anymore. It's just not anything anymore. I don't get anything from it.
So what we take from that example, this vignette, is what this episode is about. We want to empower you. We want you to see the power that you hold that is probably far greater than you realize. But it is that if somebody like this in this situation can be kind of, in the depths of his life, struggling, whatever, living on the streets, or just completely addicted to drugs or whatever, and if that person can make a change, can decide something different, all of a sudden his whole world can change, he can change, and now the world is completely different. He's got a stable job, he's sober, he's saving money, maybe he's got a retirement account now, maybe he's met somebody and he's starting a healthy relationship or whatever. Like, his life all of a sudden the world is now a completely different place to this person because he made a decision to change. Although the world was always this way, right? Those things were always out there, maybe just waiting for him. It was just a matter of him deciding to be someone different that could step into those things.
Right. So the other side of that too, because we kind of look at these from different sides, it may be that part of the belief that is putting you in whatever situation you're in is the antagonistic belief towards other situations. So in other words, I don't really want to be like those people, so you end up staying where you're at. You might not even totally like it. It really, you might be like, I don't know if I like my life or whatever, but you don't really have anything more to say than that.
Yeah, or here's another example that I see a lot, that people, basically what you're describing is these beliefs or these ways of thinking that keep you stuck where you're at, which is, it might be like something happens and you interpret it as things are happening to me, or other people have something better than I do. Everybody always gets this and I only have that. It's, why does this kind of stuff always happen to me? Like, why doesn't it happen to this other person? Or why does this other person always get, that life is so easy for them and it's so hard for me? that's the world that you've sort of created for yourself because of some belief that you have.
Right. And so the what can keep you where you're at is actually not wanting to be associated in another part of the world, which honestly, the other part of the world is just existing. I mean,
Right.
like, all it's doing is
Those
being
people
there.
aren't over there saying like, don't come over here, stay away.
They just are doing their life. That's about it. You actually could just do things differently.
They walk by you on the street, and you walk by them, and you just pass each other, and that's it. It's not, nobody's judging or whatever. They're just existing.
Yeah, there was a study done, and it was documentary style, like on, I think it was on Netflix. I cannot remember the name of it, but a lot of our listeners are going to know. You should comment and say what the name is. Basically, there's this artist who, the artist is a police sketch artist. And it's, by the way, those people are freaking amazing. People, artists, you guys can do that is ridiculous. Anyways, it's crazy. So what they did was they had one person come in, and they said to the person, we want you to describe to the sketch artist yourself. You draw yourself, right? And then so they would tell, like, oh, this is what I have, this is, whatever. And then what they would do is the next person that came in, they did this with every single person. But then the other thing they would do is they'd say, hey, you saw a person walking out. Can you describe that person? And we're gonna see if like how well you saw them or whatever. And every time, I mean, it was every time, the sketch artist would draw for their own self something that was wacky. I mean, it's like not even
a
close.
Picasso version.
Yeah, it's like,
so the nose is over there where your ear is.
Yeah, it's like so weird. And then the other person coming in was pretty close. They would look at the other person and be like, oh yeah, no, I can see it. Like, that's pretty close. And it's kind of like exactly what we're talking about. Is like you have a belief system about other parts of the world that keep you from it. That's the other thing. You are attracted to some, but sometimes when you realize that you need to have a change in your life, the thing that's hindering you is not wanting to be like that guy. Like, you're like, man, I want to be like, those people are so blah blah blah. Like, you just know, what are you talking about when you say those people? I think when you even analyze it down, it's like, well, I know this person and this person, this is how they were, and then they dress like this, which is why I don't want to dress like that. Like, okay.
Yeah, and the other side of that too, or a different version of that could be, instead of I don't want to be like that, one of your beliefs could be I will never be like that. It could be like those people or that person is so far above me or so, better than me or whatever, and I will never be that or achieve that or whatever. And again, I love the documentary that you just described, because I've heard this somewhere else and I'm trying to place it on the fly, and it'll maybe come to me, but it's the idea that people will usually like rate themselves lower than what they actually are. Right? I mean, it's not like oftentimes in performance people will like overemphasize themselves, like, oh, I'm far, I'm better than what I think I am. That's not what I'm talking about. It's more like who you are. People will tend to be harder on themselves than anybody else can be on themselves or can be on them. And so it's this idea that you might be looking at yourself like the sketch of the Picasso, right? Like, this is who I am. And then you see the entire world around you as all the other like perfectly drawn, real life versions. You're just this weird, wacky cartoon, that's weird. And everybody else in the world, or this other group of people, are these like very well sketched things. And you're like, oh, I'm never going to be that, because look at me, I'm a Picasso. And that's not true. You just have a limiting belief about yourself that says, this is what I am not that, I will never be that. And therefore, you're keeping yourself stuck. You might actually have access to that, and it might be closer than what you think. And if you can align yourself more realistically with who you are and what you're capable of, you might actually, and even challenge yourself to grow, or challenge yourself in ways that you don't usually let yourself be challenged. You might actually find that you are more capable and closer to that group than you think. As an example, silly little example, I hired a personal trainer years ago, and I think it was like in the first workout. I had a history of working out when I was in high school and college. It had been a while, And so I was, insecure, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And he was like, give it a try. Do this amount, or do it in this way. I was like, I don't think I can do it. And he was like, just give it a try. Maybe you'll surprise yourself. And that obviously stuck out to me. And that was like probably like 10 or 15 years ago that happened. And to me, it feels like that opened the door to, I did this and I did surprise myself. And I started asking, what else could I do that I might be able to surprise myself with? It's like that kind of a thing. The limiting belief says I can't. And so therefore, that's the world you're in. You're in a world of this is all you can do. Whereas if you potentially change your mindset about that and pursue what else could I do, maybe you'll surprise yourself. You might actually find yourself walking in a different part of the world, down a different street in a different neighborhood with different people that you never thought you could, but you can.
And that's why Aaron is always so excited at the beginning of every podcast, because he is surprised all the time.
I'm jacked. I'm so excited to help you guys to see that about yourselves.
I think one thing to consider is, why are you where are you? So like the idea of like, why do I go to the places I go? Why do I care about the things I care about? Because they're little. I mean, yes, they're philosophical, blah blah, therapy state. Dude, you're listening to a podcast of Bridging the Gap Between Clients and Therapists. Of course, you're going to hear this. Are we kidding right now? So anyway, looking at just entertaining the idea, like, I'm probably here because I believe something about myself. I mean, this could go down to even stores you frequent. I mean, honestly, and it can be kind of weird when you start to realize, like, holy mackerel, I'm doing this because of this. Like, that's kind of wacky. Every time, this is beliefs. I'm just going down the idea of beliefs, and how powerful they are, which is why cognitive behavioral therapy is such a thing. But I was working with a person who figured out that her belief about something was, I'm not worthy of loving, or like being loved, that idea. Well, because of that belief, she was kind of managing. She'd be very quiet. She'd be very quiet in different situations. It all came back to one scenario in her life, but she didn't realize that like that belief was going on. I said, just entertain the idea that whenever you are being quiet, you probably are believing that, right? So anyways, some time goes by, she's at a board meeting, and she was realizing in the board meeting that she was being really quiet. And she's like, no way, I'm doing it right now? I don't even care if these people love me. I literally do not care.
I don't want them to love me, because that's weird.
Right. So then she started talking, and the people next to her looked over like, what are you doing? Like, why are you saying something? Because she was basically a guaranteed vote because she didn't want to upset anybody, that whole idea. And then it ended up being, she's a really intelligent woman, and then ended up moving on to like being the director of this stuff that I can't talk about, like overall in the state of Oregon, rather than just with the job she was doing. So it's like, and that was a minor, if you think about it, that was one thing. It was like that belief applied in that scenario, and the only thing that she did different was talk.
And this is what's really interesting. I've heard this about professional athletes, Olympians, and people that are like high performers like that. These individuals have a ridiculous view of themselves. It's unrealistic, and I'm not necessarily condoning that. It's saying that you should follow that, right? But these people have a view of themselves and a belief in their abilities that is so far above the average person's that is the thing that essentially carries them into excellence or greatness. And obviously there are a lot of other things that go into it, like DNA and genetics, that kind of stuff, having access to resources and stuff.
Definitely matters.
Right, because being somebody who's like 5'11", like that's probably not likely. I can like say that to myself, and it's possible. I mean, they're like Fred VanVleet, who's in the NBA. He's a shorter kind of a guy. I think he might be 6 foot or so, maybe 5'11". But
Spud Webb was 5'8".
Yeah, there are not many, right? So, okay, all that aside, the idea though is that who knows what you might be capable of. Maybe it's not that specific thing, but having this view of yourself, this belief of yourself, means you're going to do certain things, you're going to put yourself in certain situations, surround yourself with certain people that might be very different than what you're used to, and now all of a sudden the world is going to look very different. Your world is going to be different and look very different around you, and it's going to attract different things. You are going to attract different things and be attracted to different things because your beliefs about yourself have changed. And now all of a sudden the world as a mirror, it's as though things have changed, but nothing has changed, only you have. That's the empowering thing.
So I'm going to give you one suggestion, then we're gonna be at home with this thing. Next time that you're in some kind of market situation, meaning like you're at a store or maybe you're at a farmer's market, the next interaction you have with a human being, or even realize what experience you're having in that place, ask yourself, what do I believe about this that's making me do that's the reason why I'm doing it? And then when you figure that out, which honestly probably won't be too much time going by, then think, what if I believed the opposite? Just from a black and white scenario, what would I do differently right now? And just kind of play it out a little bit in your mind. And if for extra credit, try it.
And for a sort of funny example of this, the show, the sitcom Seinfeld had an episode about this where one of the main characters, George Costanza, was like a short, overweight, bald guy with glasses, and very neurotic. He decided to do the opposite of everything that he did. And for that entire episode, everything good started happening. He started dating like a model, and he got the job that he wanted. And it was just like everything was going his way. It's a funny example of that, but give it a try.
All right. Hey, have a great day. What I was thinking about when I was laughing was, they're like, what are you doing? He's like, I think about what I want to do, and then I don't do that.
Yeah.
I do, what do you do? I do the exact opposite. What? That's all I do. It's working. Because he always talked with that inflection.